Welcome to The Explainer. You know, when you crack open a computer, you're immediately hit with this complex green circuit board that looks like a miniature city. That's the motherboard. It can seem pretty intimidating, but I promise, by the end of this, you're going to see it in a completely new way. So, what is this thing really? Well, let's start with an analogy that just clicks. Don't think of it as just a piece of tech. Think of it as the computer's central nervous system. Seriously, every single command, every piece of data, it all flows through here, connecting all the individual parts so they can work together as one. And to wrap our heads around it, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the brain of the operation, then talk about adding more power and storage. After that, we'll look at the systems that keep it alive. And finally, we'll uncover the invisible connections that make it all happen. Okay, let's dive right in. We're starting with the absolute heart of it all, the brain of the computer and its super fast sidekick, its short-term memory. These two are, without a doubt, the most important duo in your entire machine. See this big square, usually right in the middle? That's the CPU socket. You can think of it as the throne for the computer's brain. This is where the central processing unit, the CPU, physically locks in, letting it talk to everything else. It's the command center for the whole show. Now, this is a really important point, especially if you ever want to build your own PC. You can't just stick any CPU into any motherboard. Not going to happen. Intel and AMD, the two big players, use totally different designs. And even with the same brand, new generations often mean new sockets. They have to be a perfect match, period. Right next to that CPU throne, you'll always see these long, skinny slots. These are for your RAM, or random access memory. Think of RAM as the computer's super fast short-term memory. It's like a workbench. It holds all the data the CPU needs right now. The more RAM you have, the bigger your workbench, and the more things your computer can juggle at once without slowing down. Okay, so we've got the brain and its quick-thinking memory locked in, but how do we add new skills, like better graphics, or, actually store our files? Well, that's where all these other slots and ports come into play. These long slots here, these are your PCI Express slots, or PCIe for short. These are basically the universal upgrade ports for your computer. If you want to beef up your machine for gaming, get faster Wi-Fi, or add some specialized hardware, you're going to be plugging a card right into one of these. And this list just shows you how versatile they are. That beast of a graphics card that makes your games look incredible? Yep, it slides into that top PCIe slot. Need to add Wi-Fi to a desktop? Just pop in a small card. These slots are what make your PC so modular and future-proof. Now, let's talk about long-term memory. This is where your operating system, your games, all your photos and documents actually live. The latest, fastest storage drives are these little gumstick-sized things called NVMe SSDs, and they plug right into these tiny M2 slots. For bigger, older drives, you'll use these L-shaped ports called SATA. All right, we've got the brains, the memory, the storage, but none of that means anything without power. Now we get to talk about the real unsung heroes of the motherboard, all the little bits and pieces that work behind the scenes to deliver clean power and just keep the system alive. A motherboard is hungry, really hungry for electricity. These two big connectors, the long 24-pin one and the smaller 8-pin one near the CPU, are the main power lines. They're like the main arteries, pumping all the juice needed from the computer's power supply to keep everything running. But here's a cool detail. That power from the power supply is way too coarse and powerful for the delicate CPU. That's where the VRM, the voltage regulator module, comes in. I love this analogy. Think of it as the CPU's own personal power chef. It takes that raw 12-volt power and it carefully refines it, cleans it, and serves up a perfectly stable, low voltage that the CPU can actually use. A better VRM means a healthier, more stable CPU. And, just like any high-performance machine, it needs life support. You'll see these chunky metal fins or heat sinks around the board. Their only job is to pull heat away from critical parts, like that VRM we just talked about. And what about this little silver coin? That's the CMOS battery. It's a tiny battery that gives the motherboard just enough power to remember things like the date and time, even when your computer is totally unplugged. So we've covered the components and their power source, but how do they all talk to each other? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Some of the most important parts of the motherboard are the ones you can't even see, the hidden coordinators and secret pathways that manage all that data flying around. This quote just nails it. The chipset, which is usually hiding under one of those heat sinks, is the master traffic controller of the motherboard. It's a dedicated chip whose entire job is to direct the flow of information between the CPU, RAM, your graphics card, and your storage drives. It's the ultimate coordinator. And the chipset you get really defines the personality of your entire motherboard. It determines everything: how many USB ports you have, how many expansion cards you can use, how fast your memory can run, even whether you can overclock your CPU for more performance. It is, for all intents and purposes, the heart of the board's feature set.
But before any of that can happen, something has to wake the computer up in the first place. When you press that power button, the very first thing that runs is a piece of software stored on this tiny chip. It's called the BIOS, or UEFI on modern boards. It's the initial spark. It wakes up all the hardware, does a quick check to make sure everything's okay, and then tells the computer where to find your operating system to get things started.
So we've looked at all these components: the sockets, the slots, the chips, but underneath it all lies the true marvel of engineering. The most critical, most complex part of the motherboard is something you can't see at all. It's literally baked into the board itself. So what do these numbers mean, 4 to 16? Well, that's how many layers are inside the physical circuit board. A motherboard isn't just one flat surface, it's a multi-layered sandwich with anywhere from 4 to 16 layers of microscopic copper wires, or traces, running between them. This is the hidden freeway system connecting everything together at incredible speeds. It's an invisible masterpiece.
So there you have it, from the CPU's personal power chef, the VRM, to the master traffic controller in the chipset, all the way down to the hidden layers of copper freeways inside the board. The motherboard is an incredible piece of integration. Now that you've had a peek under the hood, what's the one piece of engineering that really surprises you the most?